Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast, changing the way we think about money. I'm pleased to be joined today by Stoy Hall. Stoy is the founder and CEO of Black Mammoth, as well as the host of the No BS podcast. In this episode, we'll be discussing Stoy's insights on how we change the way we think about money and ridding the world of financial illiteracy. Stoy, welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you on here today. So, let's get started with a little bit about you. What is your origin story?
Yeah, absolutely. Born and raised from Omaha, Nebraska. Was raised with a family that a single mother, working 12-hour shifts, and really didn't have financial literacy or the financial freedom or cash flow that we all think of and dream of now, right? Those are all the key trigger words. Those weren't words back then, but we use them now. And I learned early on that for my mother, money mattered a lot, and not money per se, but being able to buy certain things for me. And now as a father, I can understand that, but also need to recognize that gifts and items aren't what's important when you talk about wealth or financial freedom and whatnot. It comes down to experiences and memories. And I learned that on an early childhood. Wanted to get out of that. Sports were my way out. I was a baseball player first. That was my first love, but became better at football. Ended up going to Drake University to play football. As well as while I was on campus, I worked at the Boys and Girls Club for about 4.5 years while I played, and really learned that same philosophy that I had really stretches upon everybody, right? Especially those in the mid to lower income levels. But then now, within being in the industry for 11 years now, 12 years now, 13 years now, you recognize that it doesn't matter how much money you have or income you have. It's the same philosophy. It's the same understanding or lack thereof understanding of money. And I knew I wanted to help that. So started in 2011 at an insurance broker, worked my way up to managing partner within a year and a half. And then about 4 years after that, realized that I wanted to do financial planning, like holistic, and let the plan dictate what we do, not life insurance, right? Life insurance is very important. We can all agree to that. But it shouldn't be the first and only main important thing you do. The plan itself, depending on everyone's situation, dictates what you should do. And so left them, joined a firm out of Houston, which is now Centric Advisors, buddies of mine, and started to grow up here in Iowa, get my feet wet, understanding how the RIA space works and how to work in that realm. And then in 2020, launched Black Mammoth, my firm, the Modern Family Office, with the same concepts, just honed in on everyday life and helping you make those decisions and push those buttons for you so you can focus on the two things that matter for you, your family and however you make income. So that's really a quick version of my background story. Again, if you guys want more details, go ahead and Google me, but that's definitely who I am in a nutshell.
Well, that's cool. Well, we could definitely talk football, and that
Yeah.
might be a little more interesting than financial literacy to some people. That's an awesome story. You said a couple things in there. Well, you said a lot of cool things in there. But one I want to highlight is that it's not really about gifts and items. It's about experiences and memory. And I think that's available to anybody. Money can maybe give you different experiences and memories, but you can still have experiences and memories. But, it is coming from your background. I mean, and now, the family office, you're dealing with extremely wealthy people. Is how can people, I guess, see themselves in a different light or start to change their own financial status?
Yeah. And that's why I've called it a modern family office, right? Traditional family offices are ultra high net worth people. We've created it so it's not that way. It
Mm.
literally is run of everyday business owners, if you will, mom and pop shops, obviously all the way up, but we've modernized it to where everyday business owners can really participate and have that same feel. A lot of it comes down to, we talk about mental mindset or wealth mindset a lot. And it really comes down to when you can transition yourself from always worrying about expenses, always having that bad gut feeling every time I purchase something, to how can I create long lasting memories and experiences. You naturally tend to not spend as much money. You naturally tend to care about those events and focus on those more than you do the next pair of shoes, right? Or that great big house. And that's usually what I have my clients focus on is when we talk about goals, I'm not talking about, hey, you want to retire at 65 and 67 or whatever it is. Those are important too. But while you're living, right? What do we want to achieve? What do we want to accomplish? What do we want to see? What do we want to do? How do you live as opposed to, hey, we need to cut down on this expense and do this? Because ultimately, if you have the right passion behind what I want to achieve, for example, my family and I, we go to Hawaii every year for 2 weeks. I know that to do that, I have to make a certain amount of income, right? Not cut down expenses. I need to make enough money to make this goal or this experience for us every year, achievable and doable. And that is the same mindset we all should take, right? Whatever our thing is, right? It could be just getting kids to play sports because that's expensive as hell. It could just be, minimal things like that. If that passion and that experience and memory you want so bad will help you get over the hump of figuring out how to make the correct income. And that could be changing jobs, that can be being a business owner, whatever it is. If that core thing is strong enough, naturally as humans, we're going to figure it out. And once we can flip our mindset to not being so focused on where our money is coming from and more focused on their experiences and memories, as soon as you can do that, the quicker you can turn your wealth journey around, if you will.
Well, that's cool. Well, and it sounds like, a big part of that is what you're talking about is mindset and changing the focus, as you said, is, and this is my experience as well, is people aren't necessarily interested in the retirement process, but they're interested in being comfortable when they stop working. And that's the thing is what does your retirement look like rather than what number? Yeah, I mean, the number is a tactic,
Right.
but and did that kind of come from playing sports as, that being oriented on a goal, like winning this game, winning a championship?
Yeah, it did. And it really comes back to the journey. We used to call it a process back then in sports, but every season, right, if you will, which is every year for people, is a grind. It has its own goals, it has its own theme, but it also has its own process that has its ups and downs, right? They're never the same. And in football, we relate it back to, we teach our kids this all the time too, is in football specifically, we would train for 8 to 9 months without the ability to play a game. Then we had about 3.5 months to 4 months of actually being able to execute 11 times, right? So you think about something in life that you only get 11 opportunities all year round to execute what you've been practicing and doing, right? That is a very long time of training and practice and want to and desire for 11 opportunities that you're not even guaranteed because you can get injured or something else happens, right? And so I tell everyone that of like how much we had to train and how many hours it took for 11 opportunities. The great thing about your wealth journey is those opportunities come every day and you can still train and practice at the same time, right? So you can learn from your mistakes and your successes a lot quicker in the wealth journey, which means you can change your mindset and your desire quickly than if you were an athlete when you only have 11 opportunities, right? And that all comes down to everyday decisions and thinking through those processes. Knowing sometimes, hey, for me, my advice is meat and food. That's where I will overspend and not feel any, won't worry about it at all. But budget wise, it'll hurt me. And so for me, I know that, hey, meat is my vice, so I'm going to be okay with me spending on it, right? And not let that, hey, I just spent $1,200 on beef this year or this month, be what drives me down, but to realize that that makes me happy and that's okay, right? Where else in my life am I spending money that doesn't bring me joy? Is it, watching too much TV? Is it too much time on social media? Is it, you name the thing? I will adjust my joy to that, and I will steal that joy from Larry Sprung. And I now use joy a lot more because of him. But that being said, is find what makes you joyous and happy. Those are the things to focus on and reduce everything else. And you'll see that it changes your mindset as well.
Well, that's awesome. And I think the bottom line there is it's a trade-off. You're making the trade-off for what you gives you joy. And I think that's something that we need to think about. If we have limited resources, it's still okay to spend money on something. You don't need to give up your daily coffee.
Right.
That's what brings you joy. But you may have to give up something else to make things work. So that's awesome advice.
A lot of the things that we give up or we don't think to give up is just run-of-the-mill things that they think everyone does, right? Whether it's, having Netflix or whatever, you name that thing. Like we all just have it to have it, but really does it bring you joy or is it just filling a void, right? Wouldn't it be nice to spend more resources on the thing that brings you joy, whatever that may be, and be okay with it? And like that's what you get to do, as opposed to looking every month and going, man, I can't spend more money on meat, or I can't go see this concert because I don't have it. Well, choose the things that make you joyful.
That's awesome. That's great advice. So, just to back up for a second is, you've used the term family office. Can you define the term family office for us?
Yeah, that one's always the tough one, right? Because family office to us in the industry, we know what it is, right? But the normal public doesn't. By design, right? Family office is supposed to be private. You're not supposed to know what's going on. And ultimately, that's why I wanted to modernize it. I wanted everyone to know that I believe everyone should have a family office, or at least a service tier of a family office, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really, what a family office does is everything else in your world that you don't want to do. And I say that simply. It's a very complex thing, right? We're talking about tax planning, the bookkeeping all the accounting to that, your investments, not just your traditional investment stocks, bonds, mutual funds, but your real estate dealings, your business assets, and the biggest one of them all, the legacy side of it, making sure that these assets or this plan continues on past this generation. Your run-of-the-mill everyday conversations and asks of, hey, I need a vehicle. Where the hell do I start? Family office takes care of it. Paying your bills, family office takes care of it. Setting up your travel and doing all those concierge things that takes time out of your day, family office takes care of it. Have a random ass question about you name it, family office is there to take care of it, to go find the answer for you, vet out whoever it needs to be to fill that gap. It's literally like having, that bodyguard right next to you at all times that can deal with all of the nonsense. So you can focus on, again, the two things that are important, usually your family and whatever means of income that you have, right? Those are two things that we can do. And that's what a family office does, right? It's very complex, but simply put, it's just your bodyguard who can take care of all the back things for you.
That's awesome. And really, it sounds like, a lot of times when people have advisors, it's sort of a piecemeal family office that, we tend to just sort of gather and we have all these pieces. And it's cool with that concept that you're putting it together that people can have a team of advisors who actually talk to each other. So, if you're an advisor out there, here's a message: talk to the other advisors for your clients. You're going to help them out and give them, maybe not the full family office experience, but you can give them partial experience.
Yeah, and I believe our industry is shifting towards that. Maybe not advisor to advisor, but I'm seeing a lot more of our advisors doing the extra work, doing those extra things. Some of them wrap it up as in financial planning, whatever you want to do. we're starting to go that route. But something that we always miss in our industry is we all think we're in competition with each other, right? And that is one of the most false things in our industry, because how many millions of just adults are there in the United States? 133 million or something like that. There is what, 19,000 of us, or 91,000 of us CFPs. Do the math. We can't handle that. I know I can take on about 40 clients. And now if I add more people, yes, that can go up. But the average advisor in my eyes can't usually take on more than 60 if you are doing financial planning and the holistic side of things. So from a math perspective, there's not enough of us. So why are we not coming together to help each other expand that? Because some of us have different skill sets than the others. It's simply put, but I think our industry is moving that way.
I think so. I agree. I think it's slowly moving that way,
Oh,
but definitely moving that
yeah.
way. So Stoy, how can people achieve the true wealth that they deserve?
It starts again, we go back to the mindset earlier where we talked about, but true wealth is happiness, ability to give back to others, and live life basically joyfully the way you want to. Now, is money involved? Do you need income for that? Yeah, because money's intertwined with our lives in this day and age. However, it's just a tool. And you need to recognize that it is just a tool. For us as business owners, we like to what we call business decisions, right? It's not emotional. It's nothing to do with the person, relationship, or anything. Like sometimes it's literally just a business decision. When the everyday person, when you talk about your personal finances, if you can start to operate it more like a business and understand that the money is just a tool, that you don't need to have emotions behind, some decisions, that's when you can try to get your true wealth. And that means focusing on the memories and experiences. And so to start that is flip that mindset. Look at your money as a tool and as just a business. And don't say, hey, yeah, I really need to buy that, or I really need to do this. When you come back to think about it, does it line up with what brings me joy? And does it line up with my experiences and memories that I want to achieve? Then make the business decision, right? And say, no, I don't need Netflix. I don't need to spend 10x on a home, right? When I could have something smaller and I can travel more, right? That's when you
Yeah,
could
there
start
you
to get the
go.
true wealth.
There you go. I mean, I love that. And I think, people who listen to the show hear this from a lot of the guests, that money is a tool, and to keep your eye on what you really want to achieve rather than coming in product first. Because I haven't heard you say, like, hey, you need to get into ETFs, as you're saying, like, well, ETF may be a tool. I mean, you haven't mentioned ETFs, but
Right.
that ETFs would be a tool to get you to wherever you want to go. But that's not the starting point. And I think that's hopefully something that benefits people. I think it's a great point.
Yeah, I say
So
this one on almost every episode. It doesn't matter how much return an advisor or anyone tells you they can give you, right? Tony, if I said I can give you $1 billion or $1 billion% return, you'd be like, awesome. Well, if you had $0 to invest, it wouldn't matter what return I can give you, right? And that's the same exact thing. If I don't have my regular thing, my cash flow in order, and I don't have money to invest or to put towards something, it doesn't matter what fancy investment tool there is. It doesn't matter. Zero times whatever is still zero. And so people need to focus on themselves and get that in order and invest back into themselves. And I don't just mean like 10%. I literally mean your mental, physical health as well before you think about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, real estate, etc. Because if you don't have that other stuff in line, it doesn't matter what those do. Something's going to fail overall.
that's awesome. That's great advice. And I think that's important. Is you mentioned something that all of this is intertwined. It's not just our money. It's, our health, and there have been so many studies about how money impacts our physical health, our mental health, the rest of it. So that's awesome advice. So Stoy, let's jump into the get ready money questions. The first one is, what basic money concept do you wish people knew?
Basic money concept. And I hate saying this one, but it is literally the one that we all have to say, and that is true budgeting, right? And I don't mean in terms of looking at it and making yourself feel bad because of your expenses and income, but like truly grasping what we're going to spend going forward, right? From a budget perspective and what it means to me in making decisions as well. We see it all the time. It's disorganization from clients. Like that's the majority. I would say every one of my clients that comes to me, the first thing we do is just organization in general, right? And so that's what I mean by budgeting. It's more organizing it. Where's my money coming in? Where's it going out? And why, right? Why is it doing that? A lot of us don't have all of that in one picture, right? We know I do have a 401k or I do have this, but have you ever looked at it globally and organized it so that you know exactly what's happening? The answer is no, right? I even fail on that myself personally. I don't do it all the time either. And so the first one is just budgeting, but being organized and knowing what comes in and what goes out.
That's awesome. And for everybody watching and listening to the show, you know that I write about this all the time. And that's what my last book was about, is just getting organized and seeing how everything fits in together. And that's behind the whole Get Ready movement. That's the whole point here. So I'm really glad you brought that up. But I think the other thing you brought up that is really critical is why. We don't ask that question very often, is why do we want to do this? And you alluded to this earlier, is, you know, why do you want that house? Why do you want that experience? You know, and sometimes you'll go, maybe I don't need that new pair of shoes. You know, it's like, that's not going to bring me joy, and it's going to keep me from going on that vacation. I also want to give a shout out to Stoy's newsletter, which there's going to be a link in the show notes to. Stoy, you have an awesome newsletter where you cover these subjects. So everybody watching and listening, I would urge you to subscribe to Stoy's newsletter. So just a quick shout out to that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. So next question is, what is one simple thing you can do each year to set yourself up for financial success?
Mm-hmm. That's I love that question, one, because it's not always so simple. And I will always
Yeah.
answer it this way because our industry loves this answer. It depends on your situation. But honestly, one simple thing to do outside of what we just talked about with budgeting and organization is figure out that thing that brings you joy that you want to accomplish that year. Okay. I talked about it earlier with us as athletes. We have a season, so we know every year we're going to play 11 games or whatever it is. You need to have that thing every year that you're prepping for, that you're looking forward to, that brings you joy. And it could be more than one, right? But to keep it simple, pick one and allude back to that at all times, because that's going to keep you hopefully within track and on the right path.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think sometimes people forget that, is, you know, you set that goal and then you don't work towards that goal, or you let it slip and you start working towards another goal. And then all of a sudden you have a bunch of things going on. So that's awesome advice to find that one goal. And I know, yeah, I didn't play basketball at the same level you did, but that was always the sports thing, is, you know, like, you know, what do you want to accomplish? And then you stick to it. So that's important. So that's awesome advice. So the next question is, what is one habit that people can change when it comes to their money?
This one's tough. This is the hardest thing to change. Okay. I don't want to give you a simple one. I want to give you the thing that is going to be the hardest to change. And that is that feeling you have when you spend money. Now, I say that, but that has a lot to do with your mindset and where you're at and what's going on and all the emotions that are happening in life. But if you can transition from I'm spending this dollar and right, I don't know if I have enough, this makes me feel a certain way, to changing it to it's just an avenue, it's just a tool that I need for my goal, it makes it different for you, right? Because you put so much pressure and stress and anxiety on every decision financially that you need to have the freedom in understanding that when you go to spend that dollar, you've already organized and budgeted for it, or whatever you want to call it. You've already put it to work. You're just now moving the money to where it needs to go. It takes the anxiety and stuff away. And part of that is, I tell everyone, you have to have a fun budget item. So a line item in your budget has to be fun money, is what we call it. And that is literally money that if you wanted to, you could just burn it. I don't care what you do with it, but it needs to have that flexibility in everyone's budget to just go spend and be happy, because something to do with your mental health is sometimes just having the ability to go do it, right? Having that flexibility and just do it, and it makes you happy.
That's awesome. And I've had a few guests on the show who really were more into the FIRE, financial independence, retire early. And that's one of the things, and this is a question I'll ask you about the time machine in a minute, is that they, if they went back in time, they would spend a little bit more of their money and not have lived in such austerity, even though now they're financially set. Is that, yeah, it's definitely something they would go back and change and have spent a little bit of money on experiences and memories. And that's the other thing, when you're young, I'm getting a little bit older, and there's some things I can't do now that I could do at your age. So, it's great advice. So Stoy, what is one money myth you are trying to break?
One money myth. Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Man, there's a few out there. I will say this, that investments are just also a tool. We focus so much in our industry about the returns you can get and all of that. Guess what? None of that matters. It doesn't. It doesn't matter if I get 10%, if I beat the S&P or not. What matters when I'm investing, and what I mean investing also is, yes, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, real estate, etc., businesses, etc., but also personally, which also means travel, my mental health and my physical health, all of those. When I'm talking about investing, it only makes up a certain portion of your overall wealth journey and the growth of your actual wealth. And that is why it's the biggest myth, because it doesn't matter if I get 10%, 20% return. If I got 5% return and still met my goal of whatever that goal is, aren't you happy? Aren't you full of joy? Doesn't it matter more to reach that goal than what the S&P 500 does compared to your own portfolio? We have driven that so much in our industry that people now only focus on returns. And we've seen it with the meme stocks. We've seen it with just in general. The stock market is, everyone thinks that they need to have 10x, 20x, maybe even 30x returns now. Thank you, Bitcoin, for that. And that's the norm. And that's what matters. It doesn't. None of that matters. Again, if I told you that I'm going to allow you to reach your goal, whatever that goal is, you're happy, right? Ultimately, that's all that matters. But what if I told you to reach that goal, really all you need is a 3% return? That person's going to go, that's it? No, I want a 9%. I want to beat the S&P 500 is what their answer is going to be right now. But again, that doesn't matter. Your goal reaching matters. So we need to do whatever it takes to do that. So the myth that I don't like or busting is investments are all that matters. Your return is all that matters. And that's false. It is the exact opposite, in my opinion.
Awesome. And that's something I advocate, as well as that so many financial planners forget that they're financial planners, and there's the 7 pillars of CFP, but the one pillar that they always talk about with their clients is investing. They spend 5 minutes on insurance. They spend 5 minutes on estate planning, and all this time. And it gets back to what you're talking about, is as a financial planner, yeah, you can't do quite everything that you're doing in a family office, but you can come pretty close if you follow the 7 pillars of the CFP. So not picking on CFPs here, but just saying, for those of you who get a little bit overly focused on one area, like investing, maybe spend a little more time on the other areas. So I'm really glad you brought that up. So, let's get out the time machine now. What advice would you give your younger self if you could go back in time, knowing what you know now about money?
Yeah. I would revert back to what I've been telling everyone, is that it's just a tool. Money's just a tool. I believe that now with my mindset, and if I had that back on, when I was younger or whatever it is, then there wouldn't be as much emotions. I wouldn't care as much about certain things, and I would focus and live more in the now, less of thinking, oh man, I need to make this money. I need to do this because in order to do this, I have to have money. I'd be focusing on, like, I just want to have these experiences and I'll do whatever it takes, meaning if I have to make a decision, I'll cut it quickly, or I'll make that decision quickly because it's going to get me where I need to go. And I know me as a person, I'm a very emotional person. I usually care more about others than myself as a fault. And if I was able to understand that money is just a tool and not the only way of life, that I would be drastically different where I'm at now. And I've seen that growth from where that mindset shift changes has been compared to, the first part of my career.
Well, that's awesome. Do you think part of this comes from your career in sports? Because to perform at the level, because Drake is D1, right?
Yeah,
Um,
WNBA, yep.
that you really have to have a mindset and a drive that maybe that translated to some of your money philosophy.
Yeah, it did. But it also took a little bit to come out of that, right? I talk about this a lot with athletes. Um, and I make this analogy because people know more about this analogy, but it's not apples to apples by any means. In the military, when they're discharged for whatever purpose, when it's over, you see a lot of depression. You see a lot of changes in their lives. Athletes are the same exact way, okay? Because you have this team that you've bled with, that you've sweated with, that you've gone through hell and back with. And when you graduate, you lose that. It's gone. The team's gone. And either you do one of two things. One, you either find a team, build a team, and keep going, or you're lost for a little bit of time. And for me, I was lost. I got hurt my last year, and never really found a solid team, and really couldn't put that together. And so the only thing you can revert back to is what you've been trained for your whole life. And that is put your head down, make a goal, grind away, and just get things done. And once I, got through the injury and got through all of that, and picked up golf, which really has helped me, is you're able to just put your head down and understand that these are just tools and avenues to get to where you want to go. But I want everyone to know that I fail at that some days too, right? It's not like 100%, you knock it out of the park. You're always going to revert back to some things. It's a matter of, now do you understand it, recognize it, and have the skills to be like, okay, that was a bad day. Cool. We'll move on to the next, right? I steal this one from the Navy SEALs as well, and I know it's a military saying, is embrace the suck, right? And the Navy SEALs say, easy day was yesterday, right? Okay. That's what all that means is life is a grind. There's going to be a lot of suck. Just keep moving forward and you'll be all right.
I love that. And I think that's important when we think about our money and getting towards these goals, is there are going to be some, zigging and zagging. It's not a straight line. It's the bigger picture. But I think the big thing that you're saying is that it's a grind. And I think people need to realize that there's no easy solution. And I don't think I've had any guest on here who said, yeah, like, hey, this is exactly what you're going to do and you're going to get rich. And so I appreciate that you're sharing that philosophy, because I think this is the kind of stuff that hopefully is helpful to everybody watching and listening, or advisors who are working with clients, that, help your clients understand this, and, it will help them reach their goals, and it will help you as an advisor really change your relationship with your clients. And I think that's important. So to wrap up, what is your number one tip on changing the way we think about money?
Yes. Number one tip, it takes a team. It takes a team to be successful, wealthy journey, whatever you want to call your thing, your financial plan. It takes a team. Okay. So whether that team is your family, if you have a solid family background, or friends, but regardless, it takes a team of people who have skills in different areas, because when it comes to your wealth, it is so complex that a normal person's brain can barely wrap their head around it. And so you need a team of people to help you, right? We have a team of people to help us from a planner perspective, right? We have other colleagues, we have other professionals. You need a team, and however you build that, that's fine, but you need to have a team. And within that team, you need to have someone who is your right hand, who can help you, guide you through that entire journey. Preferably a financial planner, by the way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I recommend that. Yeah, if you can find a financial planner, CFP is, a good way to find a financial planner. But, there are other good planners out there. So, Stoy, thanks very much for sharing your insights and everything. So where can people learn more about you? Where we didn't get a chance to talk about your podcast, where can they listen to the No BS podcast and find out about Black Mammoth?
Yeah, absolutely. Go blackmammoth.com. You also can go to any social profile except for Reddit, because I got kicked off Reddit. So Twitter, TikTok, all of them, I'm on there. Search Stoy Hall or search Black Mammoth. We will be there. Thing I ask with all of these socials and everything is comment, reach out, DM me, whatever. I'm here to have a conversation. I know you are too, Tony. That's what we're trying to drive with all of our podcasts and everything we do is we just want to have open conversations, because we believe that open conversations are going to lead to the biggest change in our world, let alone, the United States, of building that wealth and opening that up. As opposed to No BS, you can go to nobswealthpodcast.com as well. Again, wherever you get your podcasts, we're out there. We are also all over the socials at No BS Wealth. What's unique about that one is we are driving you to our website for a reason, because I have vetted professionals that are on that website that are here to help you with the same mindset that I have. And that is what we want our podcast to be, is a resource for wherever you're at in your journey and where you're at with help. Is we have the opportunity for you there, and these people are already vetted, so you can go ahead and trust them. Okay. If you need me to be there, I will lead you through those conversations too. But No BS Wealth Podcast is there to be unfiltered financial advice from all experts across all industries, and a resource for you to have some help.
That's awesome. And for everybody watching and listening, as always, there will be links for all these things to connect with Stoy, to check out the No BS Wealth podcast and find out what Stoy's up to. And as I recommend it, I'm going to give another shout out to your newsletter. I've really been enjoying that. And there'll be a link to be able, so you can subscribe to Stoy's newsletter. So Stoy, thanks again for joining us today on the Get Ready Money podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And thanks everyone, as always, for tuning in to this episode of the Get Ready Money podcast. If you learned something today to change the way you think about money, please subscribe and tell a friend. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.